The Jill and Stacy Show.
Raise your hand, I will try to recognize you. Kyle Rittenhouse is not official. Okay, I see Jennifer Gross, representative from Ohio. I see Marianne Proctor. I see Mark Hart. I'm struggling to see people in the back. Oh, Steve Rawlings, who's soon to be a senator. I'm going to speak down here somewhere, but I didn't know where you stand.
Savannah's back there.
Savannah Maddox is around here somewhere. Right in front of me.
Right there.
Thomas Jefferson.
And then Thomas Jefferson, soon to be elected to state rep. What? Oh, Paul Glover's here? I don't know who else. Does you see anyone else? Oh, well,
Yes.
obviously, Senator Jickle, who's going to finish out his duty as senator tonight and rein in another push for conservative values. If you don't know Senator Jickle, he has been a firm vote on the Senate in a chamber that has been going increasingly leftist. He has been fighting and pushing that. So I believe he will be our first speaker tonight, if I'm correct. And with that, I would want you to recognize and welcome Senator Jickle.
You have to, my crotch is a little bit wet here. Jolene from the Inquirer just dumped a drink by mistake in my lap.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
She got over and she very chilly. My name is John Schickle. I represent this county, Boone County. Welcome, Liberty lovers. I find it very interesting when our friends in the media or somebody wants to describe me, they very condescendingly say, well, he's one of those Liberty guys. I think, well, please insult me again. What a wonderful thing to be called a Liberty candidate. After all, what was this country founded on? Liberty. Here in Boone County, we love liberty, and we love liberty candidates, and we love the Constitution. We love all of the Constitution.
Yep.
You know, here in Boone County, we're known for our Republican primaries.
Yes.
Let me tell you, if you're not from around here, folks, maybe over how they're full contact.
Yes, they are.
So, it's not for the faint of heart. For people that are thin-skinned, we air out the ideas and we air them out vigorously. And I can assure you of this, we don't always agree on everything. But one reason why I'm so enthusiastic about this young man, T.J. Roberts, who I'm here to support tonight, is that he is a real liberty lover.
Yes.
There's nothing fake about him. And I've noticed how well he articulates his beliefs.
Yes.
He's not afraid to articulate his beliefs. And when he does it, he makes me proud because he knows what he's talking about.
Amen.
Welcome, one and all, to Boone County, ground zero for the Liberty Movement.
Thank you, John, again, and thank you for your service in the Senate. Like I said, that chamber has been going the wrong direction, and John has been an anchor, pushing back against tax increases and other problems that we've been having. We got a huge list and a big slate of Liberty lovers here today, so I guess I will ask Savannah Maddox to come up next. Please give a round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am so grateful to Boone County for having given T.J. Roberts the opportunity to join our strong and growing Liberty team in Frankfort.
Yes.
And you know, speaking of teams, I want to tell you something about teams, because I look around this room tonight and I've been running for state representative and becoming reelected since 2018, and I've gone to a lot of events. And I want to tell you about the difference between this event and between Liberty events and then the other types of events that are transpiring all across the Commonwealth right now among folks who are seeking re-election. Those other events, among the folks who are not liberty-minded, those who do not prioritize the Constitution, those who do not prioritize our individual rights, liberties, limited government, let me tell you who their team is. Their team, the people who show up to their fundraisers, are a bunch of lobbyists. They have lobbyists and Frankfort insiders. But you know, Chamber of Commerce, you said it, John, that's their team. But I'm looking out here across this crowd and I'm not seeing those folks. I am seeing hard-working, red-blooded Americans who care about this country's future. That is the team. Fighting. This is the time of year when, as an elected official, I'm expected to go around and support Republicans and say, yeah, vote red. Of course we want to vote for Republicans and try to re-elect folks this fall, but I am to the point in the political involvement that I am at this point after this many years that I'm not just showing up and saying vote for every Republican. I'm only taking my time away from my family to support authentic Republicans, genuine conservatives. People, I'm going to put in the efforts to continue to re-elect people that stab us in the back and turn around and tell you that they're a Republican, tell you that they're a conservative, but then vote differently in Frankfort. We're not going to stand for that anymore. But you know what? You don't have to have any worries about T.J. Roberts because he is the genuine article. I have known him for many years before he ran for office, before I ran for office. He puts his money where his mouth is, but more importantly, he puts his feet where his mouth is. He has worked to elect so many good candidates, and he's been out there fighting the good fight, the ideological fight, the fight that requires the types of ideas and his ability to articulate them. And I believe that he is going to excel in Frankfort because God has blessed him with not just an intellect, but also an inner courage that is going to be necessary because, folks, you can either be loved in Frankfort or you can be loved at home. And TJ is going to keep true to his word. I believe that. So,
Amen.
Again, I just want to thank you all so very much for being here, for doing what you are and doing what you can to support authentic Republicans, to put them into office and keep fighting that good fight. Thank you so much.
We're going to keep moving on down the slate, so my next guest to speak on behalf of T.J. Roberts will be Representative Steve Doan.
Thank you so much. You know, having this chair here kind of reminds me of like the Republican National Convention when Clint Eastwood came up and like put his arm around the chair and talked about Barack Obama was ruining our country, which it was. It was just one of those weird things. So. But I'm so glad to be here. It was a joke that totally fell flat. I guess look, nobody paid attention to Mitt Romney. He was terrible. He's still terrible. But I'm so glad to be here on behalf of TJ today. You know, one of the things in my first term, I came in as a liberty insurgent, one of those folks that's what they call us. They call us insurgents. We're trying to take over the Republican Party, despite the fact, you know, what Savannah said, we're the authentic Republicans. And people were worried whether or not I would be, you know, liberty or whether or not I would be an establishment guy. And I got in my first session and I challenged leadership. For the first time in maybe the history of our state, I was able to table a bill, much to the chagrin of our leadership, and I got kicked off my committees, and it pretty much cemented to the fact that I'd be one of those liberty rebel rousers. The good thing about TJ coming in is I'm going to look like a moderate now. I'm going to be the squishy guy that they're all trying to push out of office pretty soon. But, you know, I had considered running for state representative in 2015. That's really when I decided I was going to run. And I kind of started slowly plotting and planning and deciding, you know, what I was going to do in order to get there. And I remember in 2016, I met this crazy kid with red hair who was just like rabid about politics. I I got invited to go speak to the Transylvania Young Republicans group. And I see this kid with like a 10th Amendment Center badge on him, and I'm thinking, I know what it meant. And I'm thinking, that guy's gonna ask me something that I don't want to answer. He's gonna put me in front. I was working for the governor at the time, so I was a little worried about it. But sure enough, the question was exactly what I expected. Totally right wing, right where it should have been, kind of libertarian thing. And I know this guy's got a future. This guy knows what he's talking about. I considered running. I kind of dipped my toe into the water in about 2020. I thought about running, and I know TJ had called me and he kind of pushed me into it. And then I ended up not doing it. I got appointed to city council in Erlanger, and I was going to run for state rep. In 2022, I kind of made the decision. I'm going to run for state rep. I'm going to primary Adam Koenig. It's kind of like the Grammys, you know? They're like, hey, quit talking, get off the stage.
Turn it back on and off.
But look, so I was going to run.
Turn it back on and off.
Flip the mic on and off.
There you go.
So long story short, I get the point, guys. Get off the stage. Look, I made the decision I'm not going to run for state rep in 2022. I made the decision I was going to sit out. I was going to run for re-election in city council. I didn't think I'd have a chance to win that race. And TJ called me and berated me and made sure that I put my name on that ballot. The guy went out and he knocked doors for me. He donated money to me. He wrangled up other supporters, and he made sure that I got through the finish line and was able to take out a 16-year incumbent. I couldn't have done it without TJ. Here's the thing. In November, TJ is going to walk through this Democrat. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
This is my 4th election in 2 years that I'm going through. And the reason it's my 4th election is because the establishment doesn't want me in office. And if they don't want me in office, the guy that's pretty soon going to be seen as a squishy moderate because of TJ, they sure as hell don't want this guy. So what we need tonight, I know you had to pay a cover to get in the door, but we need TJ for years to come.
Amen.
And what he needs to do tonight is he needs to build a war chest. He needs your all's help to make sure that we're moving the needle in Frankfort towards the conservative part. I saw a mailer that our Republican Party put out in a contested race in Louisville, and it looked like the talking points were the talking points for the Democrat Party.
Wow.
We need folks like TJ. We've got to hold this seat. We've got to hold many seats for a time to come. So I ask you tonight to donate to TJ, to give to him, to make sure that we've got him in the State House for many years to come. Thank you all.
Yes, so Representative Jones is absolutely correct. There's always going to be a fight over the control of the state and the state party. The truth is, and I think everybody in this room knows it, that the Republican Party is an empty vessel that is only comprised of the people that are in it.
Brian News!
And we need to put more good people in there, like T.J. Roberts.
Yes.
So, I've got a real quick, activity that we can do together. It's real simple. You stick your arm out, then you reach, you grab your wallet, then you open it, you pull money out, and you give it to T.J. Roberts. It's that simple. And not only,
because Biden gave it all away.
not only is it a simple thing to do, it's a fun thing to do. You'll leave here with a smile on your face for supporting liberty in our state, which is increasingly heading in the wrong direction. Don't even really talk about it, but we were supposed to be getting rid of the income tax in the state, but for some reason that can't happen now, despite having a supermajority of Republicans. And the reality is, unless we get a supermajority of real Republicans, things in the state will not change. And that's something that I think the people in this room know, but it's also the people know in other states. Which is why I'm happy to introduce the outreach director for Texas gun rights, a man who probably doesn't need any introduction in this room, Kyle Rittenhouse.
Howdy, folks.
Hi.
First off, I just want to say thank you guys for coming out here to support my good friend T.J. Roberts.
Yes, sir.
So this election is very important to me. This election has to do with our freedoms, and it has to do with our freedoms because we have a politician who's not going to respect the Constitution if they're elected. T.J. Roberts is not that politician. T.J. Roberts is going to uphold the First Amendment. He does that as an attorney every single day, demonstrating and proving that. he's going to uphold the Second Amendment, and that's an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. The Second Amendment saved my life. I'm not going to dive into that story. But we have gun-grabbing politicians every single day who are trying to strip away our Second Amendment rights. I know TJ is going to introduce amazing legislation to protect our Second Amendment rights when he is elected. So with that being said, I'm not going to rob much of your time. I'm going to ask you to pull out your wallets, give TJ Roberts some money for his campaign so we can get this man elected. And with honor, I'd like to introduce my good friend, TJ Roberts.
So I'm just upset right now that no one introduced Milo. Let's give Milo a round of applause. So my name is TJ Roberts. I'm the Republican nominee for State Representative District 66. That is northwestern Boone County. I'm a native of that district, and I intend to spend my entire life in that district. So one of the things about why I'm running, well, first of all, about a year ago, Marianne Proctor asked me if I would run if Steve Rawlings ran for state senate. The first thing I did was just go through the minds of has she lost her mind? But from there I just thought about it just like, is there anyone else? And whenever it became clear that people weren't particularly interested, the first thing I did was I prayed over it. I went to my God about it to just make sure that it was right in that respect. Second thing I did was I called my mother. Let her know that I'm thinking about running for office because
Smart man.
because God help me if I made that decision without telling her first. Spent several weeks grounded. I'm pretty sure that she would have found a way to ground a 26-year-old. The third thing that I did was I contacted my boss, Chris Wiest, if he's still in the room. Give him a round of applause. And I made sure that Chris wasn't going to kill me if I ran for office. When those three things came together, I decided that I'm going to do this. And there's been no looking back ever since. And the entire time, I've made clear that this campaign is not about me. It's about you guys, and it's about our faith, it's about our family, and it's about our freedom.
Amen.
And look, I'm going to be level. I'm not one to be your faith counselor. I'm not one to be your family counselor. But when it comes to freedom, well, I've read the Constitution, so I think I'm just as good as most to give some idea on that, because we have to understand what is the role of government. You have people who say that the role of government is just to centrally plan everyone's lives. That's not the role of government. The role of government is very simple. And first, we have to reject the nanny state, as Senator Schiffel describes it. We have to reject the administrative state. We have to understand that the role of government is the protection of three things, and three things only, and that's life, it's liberty, and it's property. You have the right not to have your life taken from you without due process. That's from private actors or from government actors. You have the right to your property. You are the king and queen of your own castle. And then we have liberty, and that's seemingly an effort. There's an effort within the Uniparty to turn the word liberty into a dirty word. That wasn't a dirty word in the 1770s. It wasn't a dirty word in the 1860s. It wasn't a dirty word in the 1960s. It shouldn't be a dirty word now. So what is liberty? Liberty is the act of government engaging in humility to state that they don't know how to run your life, that the Constitution doesn't give them that authority, and even if it did, that they wouldn't invoke that authority. Because sometimes it is just fundamental that the people should be left alone. And the Founding Fathers enshrined a brilliant system to ensure essential liberty. And they did it through three mechanisms. The first mechanism is through horizontal checks. So you have checks and balances through the branches of government. You have the legislative branch, which writes the law. You have the judicial branch that carries out the law, that ensures that it's interpreted, that the laws comply with the Constitution. Then you have the executive branch that is meant to simply enforce the law. And over time, the executive branch has taken far too much power. And we have abdicated that authority as a legislator, where the executive branch at the federal and the state levels become judge, jury, executioner, law maker, and the determiner of who has broken said laws. That's called tyranny. That's what we fought a revolution against, is an executive branch that has all three powers. But on top of that, we also had vertical separations. We had a federal government, we have a state government, and we have a 10th Amendment that pretty much says unless the United States Constitution expressly gives the federal government the authority, it's up to the states or the people to make those determinations. Right? So that's the 10th Amendment. And that's one of those most important checks that we have. Because if there's any role of government at the state level, it's to alleviate the pains of an overreaching federal government, because under the Harris-Biden regime, boy, have we seen what an overreaching federal government can do. And that gets me into the topic of what I'm talking about, and that's our Bill of Rights. Ratified in 1791, the Bill of Rights is 10 amendments to the United States Constitution that truly enshrine essential liberty. So we started out with the 10th Amendment, so federalism. I'm going to go in reverse order. Then we have the 9th Amendment. And this is one of those amendments that isn't talked about enough. Anyone here a fan of Thomas Massey? Good, me too. So Thomas Massey, this is his favorite amendment because it just says, just because the Constitution says you have a right here, these are the rights that we enumerated, that doesn't mean that those are the only rights that you have. Right? It's a liberty amendment. It makes sure that just because we didn't say that you have a right to speak freely on your cell phone, that doesn't mean that the First Amendment ends with a cell phone. Right? So the 9th Amendment is clear. We are liberty expansive. And through the 14th Amendment, neither the state nor federal governments can infringe upon that. We have the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. We're not supposed to have gratuitous punishment. We're supposed to be considerate on that area. You have the 7th Amendment. It's the right to a civil jury trial, which this doesn't sound that major, but when you realize that one federal investigation through any of these alphabet soup agencies, that can render a middle-class family bankrupt for decades. Right. They can ruin you. They effectively have lawmaking power for the past 40 years until the Supreme Court bravely overturned the Chevron doctrine, allowing for executive branch lawmaking, thank God. And we just got the jury trial right back in these administrative tribunals. That's a major progress. You have the 6th Amendment, the right to a trial by jury, which came with customs, such as the right to not be considered guilty until a jury unanimously convicts you, by the way.
Amen.
The jury trial is essential. It is a sacred right that we have ignored for far too long. And we see this, whether it be First Amendment, Second Amendment cases, the right to a jury trial absolutely matters.
Amen.
Then you have the 5th Amendment. The 5th Amendment gives the right to due process. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The right to notice, where the government says, hey, we think you did something wrong here. Here's the evidence against you. Now you have the right to cross-examinations. The 6th Amendment also says you have the right to the full processes before they can take your life, before they can take your liberty, before they can take your property. That's a crucial right. And further on the 5th Amendment side is further rights to your property, that the government can't take your property without what's called just compensation. Unfortunately, our United States Supreme Court has grossly misinterpreted that and has allowed for the doctrine of eminent domain for the government to, without your permission, take your property. And it's time that we do away with that outdated doctrine, or at least add as many procedural safeguards as we can. It's happening in Eastern Kentucky where there is a widow who's been in this property for more than half a century, is facing being evicted by her government, who doesn't own that property, by the way. Wow. So that way they can have a road expansion. I'm all for transportation and development, but what we have to understand is that a just society is built on consent, and eminent domain does away with the consent of the governed, and it's time to get rid of it. And then we have the 4th Amendment. This is what John Adams said we fought the revolution over, which was the right to be left alone. The right against unreasonable searches, unreasonable seizure. Look, I stand with law enforcement. I stand with, there are great officers, and we have some incredible people. I'm honored to be endorsed by the Fraternal Order of the Police. But the Fourth Amendment matters more now than ever when we have a weaponized federal government under the Harris-Biden regime under Attorney General Merrick Garland.
That's right.
Where the Fourth Amendment means nothing to them.
Nope.
So that's one of those issues, right? We have the Fourth Amendment to ensure that the government can't just search you for no reason. They have to have probable cause. They have to get a warrant. And we have far too long ignored that. Unfortunately, these instances of government weaponization that we see at the federal level, it's by and large because we have ignored Amendments 4 through 8 far too much, and we've let them get away with these clear violations. It's time that we return back to that.
Amen.
We have the Third Amendment, which I'll just go very briefly on. It just says that you can't be forced to house troops on your property unless we're in war. That's all it says. It's pretty common sense. Never really gets violated. There was one time in New York where it did back in the day, but that's about it. Then we have one that's particularly important to me, and that is the Second Amendment, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. So let's talk about this, because that is an amendment that was ignored until 2008 when the Supreme Court finally held this clearly protects the right of the people. It's an individual right. But why is there a right of the people to keep and bear arms? This isn't about hunting, guys. All right? I'm all for sportsmen. I'm all for collecting. I have probably too many guns for my budget as it is.
Lost them in a boat. Yeah. Can't ever have too many.
The Ohio River was angry that day, Kyle. But it's also about the right of self-preservation. It's about the right of the people to their own self-determination. Whether that's aggression from a private actor, or it's a government that has truly gone rogue and truly gone tyrannical, where our court system's not working, where we truly have a return back to the tyranny that we separated from in the 1770s. That's what the Second Amendment is for. That is why I am of the opinion that all gun control is clearly unconstitutional.
Yes,
and let's be
sir.
clear, in times of crisis, you are your own protection plan.
Amen.
And I want to be clear, look, train well, train hard, make sure that you are capable with whatever weaponry you choose to have, because there is responsibility with that, right? In the same way that you have the right to protect yourself, you own every action you take when you take on that responsibility. But know this, there is no government solution to any of these problems, because the reality is that peaceable people have the right to defend themselves how they see fit, and criminals do not comply with the law.
That's right.
All right.
So the second plan. The first plan, West Virginia did this. It's time we get rid of the sales tax on firearms and ammunition. You should not be taxed for exercising. And Representative Savannah Maddox has been a champion in introducing this bill already. Getting rid of gun-free zones, or as I call them, victim disarmament zones.
Yes. Making
Making sure that young people can actually protect themselves by lowering our concealed carry, our constitutional carry age to 18. Because if you can enlist, if you can be deployed, you have that right. Further, making clear that we're not going to comply with federal infringements on our Second Amendment rights. So if you're forced to pay a tax stamp for any of your Second Amendment related items, we're going to give a dollar-to-dollar tax refund to the people of Kentucky who decide to exercise that right. So I think it's time to engage our right as a state to help find national firearms. So there's so much more that we can do on the Second Amendment, but also we have to talk about one that's particularly sacred to me, and that is the First Amendment. The first one is free. So the First Amendment actually protects several rights. The first one is free speech. And that's why we're all here. That's why we're all able to do this without going to jail. Because I promise you that Kamala Harris would have you in prison tomorrow for being here if she had the constitutional authority to do so. I promise you. They were open about it in the vice presidential debate. By the way, how about J.D. Vance? One of the most powerful moments in the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans was that the Republican nominee for vice president simply said, we just need free speech. We need more conversations. We need more civil discourse. And you have Tim Walz just interrupting, talking about, well, what about hate speech? What about false claims? That's a way of saying I'm speaking too long. But then J.D. Vance just made the simple response of, this is protected. We trust the people to filter through information, figure out what's true, what's not. We trust the people. We don't trust the government. There's no minister of truth. When you give the government the authority to determine what the truth is, the truth will only be what benefits the regime. And if you guys think that we will only have that power, you are sorely mistaken. So that's one of those issues. Free speech is sacred, but then fundamentally as well, is freedom of religion. And I alluded to this at the start, but when we talk about freedom of religion, I think about Chris Weiss in the audience there.
Yes.
And in 2020, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of fear about COVID. And the governor decided to take advantage of that fear and try to shut down what, in my view, are the greatest threats to an omnipotent government. Strong family institutions guided by strong faith. And he made this decision that if you decide to go to church, if you exercise that sacred right to worship in matters of the eternal, then we're going to have Kentucky State Police come to your door on your car and put on your windshield a notice of either quarantine, or as I call it, house arrest for 2 weeks, or criminal charges facing up to a year in jail.
Right.
Well, I went to church anyway, and Bashir wasn't bluffing. He did have that happen. It's one of the greater abuses of police, because as all elected officials, all police officers do, they take an oath to the Constitution. And Bashir made that order, directing them of one of the most flagrant attacks on our First Amendment we have seen in modern history.
Hold it closer to you.
Is this better?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. So one of the first things I do whenever I see this flyer is I call Chris Weiss, and within a couple of days we had a federal lawsuit filed, and fortunately the Sixth Circuit unanimously held this is a blatant violation of the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And this is one of the sacred matters, right? When you have strong families, when you have strong communities, when you have strong faith, the need for big government evaporates, right? Because we can take care of ourselves. Look, when we look at what's going on in Appalachia right now, when we look at what's going on in Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Eastern Tennessee, these natural disasters have left people largely to fend for themselves. But they're not fending for themselves. They have their families. They have communities. Look, they need help. They need our help. And if you're able to help them, I urge you to do that. But understand that in the immediate aftermath, the bureaucracy is slow moving. The bureaucracy does not think, they're not the ones on the ground. They're not the ones that actually know what is needed. It's the people that are there, right? And that's one of those issues. When we look at the Constitution, when we look at the First Amendment, which also protects the freedom of assembly, and by the way, that includes the freedom of assembly of the entire two-member Boone County Democratic Party. That sounds like that. It protects the freedom of the press who's here today to report on this, right? It protects the right to petition. The First Amendment is sacred in that way, but the Constitution is only as valuable as the people who are willing to defend it. And for far too long, the political class has abandoned that duty. When we're sworn in, we put our hand on a Bible, we raise our hand, and we take an oath to the United States Constitution. I'm of the opinion that whenever you abandon that oath, you're perjuring yourself. You're lying to the people, you're lying before God, you're lying before the government. And I think that that needs to be considered. We need more people who are actually going to take our oath to the Constitution seriously. Fortunately, all of our speakers are people who have done that in their own ways, and I'm so thankful for that. And I'm so thankful to every last one of you for being here, because this is what this is all about. It's all about making sure that people, not government, is organizing our society. That we are supporting ourselves and supporting small businesses like Smoking This and That Barbecue over here. Thank you guys for listening. And Mandy, yes. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to everyone. You guys have all been incredible. So in closing, life, liberty, and property, it matters to people. And I truly look forward to being your voice in Frankfort for those interests. I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron Yates. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Like I said, there's a very important group activity of pulling out your wallet and donating to TJ today. Also make sure you take care of the staff here. They are really gracious in offering this venue and allowing us to do this event tonight. And please, 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 make sure that you sign up, make your donations, do everything you can here in support of liberty as we fight to take back the state of Kentucky and our country. Please have a safe drive home and have a wonderful night. Thank you.